Our topic today is lesson planning, and this is really, I'm so glad to get to present this, because this is, to me, this is like, you know, do you remember when a teacher would give you like a blank piece of paper and a new box of crayons, you know, and you could just do anything with it, and if your picture turned out nice, you just, oh, look. That's kind of what lesson planning for me is like, if I don't worry about it too much. That analogy actually works for lesson planning too. If you know how if you're worried about your picture, nothing seems to come out right, and you just, oh gosh, that's not good, and you throw it away, and oh gosh, that's not good, and you throw it away, and you go through a whole ream of paper. Well, the same thing with our lessons. If we worry too much about them, I don't know, it just, oh, nothing seems good enough. But if you just think of it like a new box of crayons and you get to do anything you want with it, that's, you know, the nice feeling behind it. So the difference for us, though, is that, like you guys know from, you know, the training you've been getting, in EFL, we're looking at so much more than just intellectual knowledge, so much more than just filling the head with information. And so much of there's a wealth of, you know, programs out and textbooks and all that you can draw upon, but almost all of it is so geared to just the head. And we are trying to bring in the whole being. And so that means pretty much we have to create it ourselves. Every once in a while you'll find something that's really good, but by and large it's take a little here, take a little there, throw out the rest, you know. And so it's the work of it, but it's also the joy, and it's so creative that way. And it is what then helps our lessons be really, really in tune with our kids. And like everything Usha's told you from the beginning, so much of everything we do is based on attunement to our kids. How could a mass-produced thing match? They don't know our kid. They know children, but they don't know our kids. And like I said, so much of it's just geared to intellectual knowledge. And of course, that's how most of us were taught. You know, most of us, what we got in school was pretty much that kind of thing. And so it means we have to not only be in tune with our kids, we have to attune to the subject matter, we have to attune to what kind of out there in the ether this subject matter can offer, and draw that down and build it into our lessons. So I want to talk today mostly about depth and meaningfulness. So what I mean by that, by depth, is that it touches the child's inner growth. It touches them directly. Meaningfulness has to do with their life. It connects to their life. And that goes across the ages. You know, I was listening at one of the EFL programs that was taught up at the village a couple years ago. Nitai was talking about, he said, until the intellectual years, so up till about 18, the vignettes are more important than the big picture. It's more important for them to, if they're, you know, he was thinking a lot of like high school, but it goes down too. It's more important for them to be able to recognize what was behind the fall of the Roman Empire. What was their motivation? What mistakes did they make? What things did they do right? How can you take that into your life and say, oh, you know, I'm a little bit like this in this situation? Then to know the whole, you know, all the dates and the whole, first this happened and then that happened and that happened. That's later. But up until that point, it's like, what touches them? So central to what we're doing is depth and meaningfulness. Let me put that here. and meaningfulness. I'm putting down the wrong word. I'm writing mistake.
Just do spell check.
Will I do that? Ooh.
Whiteboards usually don't come with that feature.
I know.
Yet.
Okay.
Yes.
So, what I'm going to do, because we only have not even an hour now, is I'm going to touch on a lot of different things that we do, parts of EFL that will help you develop depth and meaningfulness. And then later on this morning when we start working with like your actual lesson plans, it's like, okay, in this situation I'll draw upon this. In another situation it's not that you have to do all of it. It would just be completely overwhelming. Okay, now, your intuition is going to be absolutely the most important thing in this. Because like I said, you're going to have to pull it down out of the ether. You're probably not going to find it, in things that you can just get from Scholastic or what have you. And so your attunement to your kids, it's like you tune into them, and, well, you know this, I know you know this. You're thinking about somebody and an idea just comes into your mind. It's because you're connected with them. And so that attunement to your kids is going to help you draw what you need, and it's going to be a lot better than what you're going to figure out with your head. I taught with a teacher when my son was real small and I went back to teaching. I needed to co-teach with someone because I couldn't be there that many hours. And I taught with a teacher, Tim, who was a master at flowing from his intuition. And I'm not so quick like that. I have to really give it time. But he was just a master at that. And he would come in with a story, a project, a way to assess it. And so magnetic. And I remember saying, well, Tim, when did you put this all together? Because he was a busy guy. And he said, well, I just last night driving home from volleyball. But what he did after enough time of that, I reckon he just opened himself to letting that flow come. Or one time we were doing our end of the year trip. We were going camping, and he showed up. We're loading up, the vehicles and stuff like that. This man showed up, camping, mind you, with a cordless drill and about a 10-foot 2x6. I said, Tim, why are we taking that camping? He said, I don't know, I just felt like bringing it. Well, we got to our camping space, and through the winter, some water had made like a little channel between, we knew there was this big place for all these tents, but now there was this little creek going right through the middle of it. And he said, oh great, we'll build a bridge. So he needed that Makita drill and he needed that, board. And I thought, this happened to him all the time. He's just like, oh, I'll do this, oh, I'll do that. And so through our intuition, so much will come to us that it's like where the magic is, and it's where it's beyond reason, but it's the special things that really count. So, you can it's not that you don't think about your lesson plans, but you also have to, it's not that you don't even use ideas from other sources, but don't be afraid to let it go when inspiration starts coming, because that's going to be what really connects with your kids. Let's see. Also, when I talk about meaningfulness, this is where we want to really think about what fits our children's lives, where they're at, what's in their world. Right now at the village, we've got all these geese. We've got lots of geese, and I think one is nesting on the roof of our outdoor classroom. It's there every day. It's not there all the time, but it's there every day. And we keep looking and think, is that a nest? Is that? We can't tell because it's loaded with pine needles. And so there are pine needles everywhere, but it looks like she's laying eggs. We'll see. But we've got all these geese. We've got brand new baby goats. We got a donkey. And so I was trying, we could do gorillas in Africa. But what does that have to do with their lives? Right now, their lives are about geese and baby goats and the donkey. If I'm going to do animals, that touches them. If I want to do trees, we have an apple orchard, we have pine trees, we have cedar trees, we have, that's right where they're at. Now, I have first and second grade this year. As the kids get older and their experience, they can take in more mentally, they can relate to more that's out of their experience. But with the little guys, you start with their direct experience. And so, or if you're doing rocks or something like that, to start with those rocks that are in their life, then it's like they get that hook that's connected to them, and then they can reach out beyond that. And also, meaningfulness in the whole of their being. If they're struggling, say, with social issues in your class, or you feel like they're ripe not that you have to start with problems at all, because a lot of times it's most helpful. You see, they're really starting to get this. That's their edge. Let me stretch them from their point of success. It does, it's easy to think about, oh, this is a problem, because it can catch our attention because things aren't going so smoothly where there are problems. But if you think of where are they at in success right now, and can I stretch them from that point? You're building positive upon positive upon positive. And when we're feeling good about ourselves, when we're feeling positive, we're actually more able and willing to work on the things that are a little bit hard for us. If you already, we're people just like they are. They're people like us. And if we're feeling a little bit down or a little bit defeated, it's not our strongest starting point, And so if you can, in your lessons, think, how do I build in? If, say, you feel like they're real, say, social issues, because I mentioned that. If they're strong in that and you want to stretch them, so then you build in maybe cooperative learning experiences into what you're doing. So they see, they get to experience more and more of that. Or maybe you build in a service element, something that they love and they take to another grade and they share it, or they can co-teach something, or we do this naturally. This isn't new. You know how for years and years you'll take somebody who's been struggling with reading and they're getting it now, and so you have them go to somebody maybe in a lower grade and you have them work with that person's reading, and it just fills them. They feel so good. So it's not a new thing. We've done this as teachers, but when we bring it consciously to our awareness and think, I feel my kids' readiness for this. Let me consciously build it in. Then what we're teaching them touches them and has greater meaning. Okay, so let's look at some of the other things. Oh, I wanted this other whiteboard because, for years we've talked about fun, that it needs to be, what we do needs to be fun. And I always felt, I knew there was rightness in that. But I worried a little bit that spoiling is not the right word, but everything has to be fun. Something didn't quite seem right about that. But I was given a book by one of my parents this year for Christmas. Usha and I were talking about it. It's called Coyote's Guide to Connecting with Nature. And they have articulated many of the things that we have done intuitively. And you know how it's hard to go from intuition to articulate it? Because what comes to you intuitively, often it doesn't come like ABC. It just floods you. And then it's really hard to articulate it. Well, they've articulated what we've done for years and years in certain areas. And I love this, and it's really helped me. They talk about the passions of childhood, and using the passions of childhood as like a teaching tool. And this is also awaken enthusiasm. This is fun. They have another thing, and they talk about the fundamentals. Start with the fun, and then add the mentals. Oh, that's cute. I like that. But so, let me say, I better put this up. Oh, is this, yeah. So think for a minute, back to when you were a child. Now I'm going to do this way. Or the kids that you work with. And think about some of those basic things that all kids enjoy doing. First one, everybody knows, is play. Okay. They love to explore. Okay, so you start. Now this, I'm really going to need your help with spelling. Give me some of the things that you know kids love to do. Anything. Crafts. Pretend.
Help.
Yes.
Experiment. Go outside.
Oh, I didn't write nature down. Yes. Nature, and I'll put outside. Okay. Oh, I put help. Okay.
Use their bodies.
Use their bodies. Music. Movement. Can we do that as use their bodies? Artwork. That's kind of like crafts, but a little bit, different. A little bit different than crafts. Imagine. Is that pretend? But no, it's different, because imagination can be, yeah. Share. Oh, stories. I got music, yeah. Break things. Wow!
See animals.
Yes. Just animals.
Learn.
Learn, absolutely.
Push
Enjoy.
their boundaries.
Push boundaries.
Take things apart.
Yes. E-S. There's an E there.
Build up things.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to stop there. What? Giggle, laugh.
Eat.
Yes. I knew a teacher who did something with oranges. It was so cool. I mean, and it was like taking drill and practice. And she gave everybody one of those little tangerines that's easy to peel. And each section was like, I think they were studying for a test. And so as they reviewed, each section stood for something. And then when they reviewed it in their mind, they got to eat that section. A simple little thing like that. We did the other day, it comes to mind because I had somebody visiting my class, and a teacher from a public school, and she said, oh my gosh, I never would have thought of that. It's a way of practicing spelling that my kids really like. I call it commuter spelling, because when you commute to work, you go back and forth. And so we go outside, and I have their spelling words on a paper. And they have a clipboard and a pencil that's someplace kind of far-ish. I mean, not distant, but certainly as far as from me to Bob, and probably a little bit further, so that they have to hold the word in their mind a little time. And they leave their clipboard and their pencil out there. They come up to me, they see their word, they run back, they write it on their clipboard, they run, get the next word, so they're commuting back and forth, but they're running and they're laughing, their eyes are bright, and they're having to hold it in their mind for a little bit of time before they go back and write it. So it's not just copying, you know. So they're moving their bodies. So if you look at these, and I mean, of course, the list could go on and on and on. The things that kids around the world in any culture are going to enjoy doing. If you have these to guide you, say, can I put some of these in my lesson? You know, can I take what I'm doing and include any of these? You know, stories are a fantastic way to start a lesson. Children will remember a story unbelievably long. I mean, music does that too. Now, this will date me a lot. I remember learning to spell encyclopedia by Jiminy Cricket. E-N-C-Y-C-L-O-P-E-D-I-A, you know, and you remember? Yeah. Well, see, we have the same color hair. But music is a wonderful way to really help get things. I remember reading like brain research, and there's something about how music embeds things in the brain. I can't remember what it is. I didn't learn it with music. But nonetheless, it does. It does go into the brain. The same thing with a story. And it's like it touches the heart. And, you know, I remember Tim, the teacher I was telling you, he was doing a study of water. And he came in the first day, and he had a story about this little drop of water who started up in the sky in the cloud. And he was bumping up against some of his friends, and that was fun. And, you know, through the whole story, eventually they stuck together and they dropped down and they ended up in a river, and they, you know, and, oh no, they dropped down into the earth and they got sucked up, you know, into a plant, and they ended up on the leaves, and, you know, and they evaporated up into the sky, and then they ended up back into a river and out into the ocean, and, you know, the whole water cycle through this story. Everybody remembered it. I mean, he could have given them a test 3 weeks later, and everyone would have gotten 100%, because who's not going to remember the story? Everybody remembers the story, you know, and it's got all the information in it that they needed. And it's so different than sit down and learn step by step by step. So putting these kinds of things into our lessons, you know, it's kind of like putting sugar on vegetables or something that you want them to eat, but they don't want to buy or there must be something better than sugar, but you know what I mean. So
Brags.
Okay. Other thing is where, oh, I don't see it here. You know how kids like to ask questions? But now, they ask questions, but they don't necessarily wait for the answer. What about this? And what, you know, why is the fire going like that? But they don't really want your answer. They're asking the question, and the way, because they're saying, join me in wondering about it. They're not saying, tell me the answer. In fact, have you ever noticed if you give a child a real quick answer, it like stops the thinking about it? It's like, period, the end. Okay, got the answer. But if you wonder with them, why do you think the fire is doing that? Gosh, you know, I kind of think the wood, if you watch the wood, and how, you know, and you kind of enter into the exploration of it with them, and the questioning, the answering. Questioning and answering is not like giving them a quiz. We do that as adults. Kids will ask, and then we start saying, why this, why that? And it's like this quiz. But no, wonder with them in the question. You can guide their getting deeper and deeper and deeper into something by wondering with them. You know, and you don't even have to know the answer. Sometimes it's, even if you know the answer, it's certainly better not to tell them, but to let them, guide them in their exploring so that you pull it out of them, or you pull it out of their experience. And you know what else are you giving them when you do that? how do I find things out? You know, otherwise, if I know, every year I have somebody who asks me a question, they're like afraid to count on themselves. They want me to tell them, and that's safe for them. But then they're not learning how to learn. They're just learning how to get a quick answer. And, you know, and so I want to help them learn how to dive down deeper and deeper and deeper into something so they're all by themselves. They can still know how to get what they're searching for. Let me fill this out just a little bit. So first thing we've got is your intuition. Okay, and the next thing we talked about was the passions. Okay. Now we can also look at stages of maturity. All these things are what you can consider when you're putting your lessons together that will help you connect it with your kids more and with more depth. So if we look at stages of maturity, let's see. Oh, wait, let me go back just a little bit. I'm looking at my notes because there are certain things I just don't, I'm going kind of quick and I don't want to forget. When I was talking about back here, exploring things, also, you know, it doesn't have to be what you're good at. For instance, with the geese, I want to work with the geese, you know, but everything I found was all this just facts and head stuff. And even I found this sweet little book on geese, but it was all just information. So how many of you know of Bharat, Joseph Cornell? Okay, he's a world leader in, you know, nature with kids. And so I called him. I said, Bharat, I want to do something with the Canadian geese, but I can't come up with anything that really gives it depth to start with. How do I start? And he said, okay, do this. Take them out, and the first thing is have them just, he said, like we do so often, he said, start with a story. Don't tell them it's about the geese, but make up a story that includes basic things, and then at the end, have them guess what animal it was. And he said that the mystery will keep them excited about it, and you'll be giving them important information. And then he said, then take them out and have them come up with, he said 8, but 8's too, I have first and second grade, 8's too much, probably 5 would be better. Things that they notice about the geese. He said, I actually did this with my wife. I was trying it out. They were at the ocean, and it was a certain kind of little sand bird. And he said that was 2 years ago, and she can still name almost all of those things that she noticed. And he said, you know, see if you can get close. If you can't get close, give everybody their binoculars. But it could be markings on the feathers. It could be, you know, how their feet, you know, how they walk. It could be the shape of their bill. It could be anything like that, but things that they notice. Now that's going to be fun for the kids because it's like, ooh, what about this? And what about this? And what about that? But what you're doing is you're helping them learn to be quiet. You're helping them tune in to this, not from the outside, but they have to connect with it now. They've got to be quiet or they're going to fly off. And really look, really pay attention, really feel like it's like getting to know them, not just here, but with their own self. And then he said, then give them specific things to look for. What does it do with its neck while it walks? You know, like, you know how some birds do this? you know, or some go kind of up and down when they walk, you know, or see if you can figure out where it's heading as it's walking. Or we do, what we've been doing, because we can hear the geese from our classroom, well, right outside our classroom, so we'll go outside, they're noisy, and I'll say, okay guys, wait, stop, listen to the geese. How do you think they're feeling? And you can, now we know the sound of somebody's walking down the road, because there's a certain sound. It's like we're learning their language, you know, and we know when they're going, they're just talking to each other, you know. Because we'll listen first, and then we'll go where we can watch them. And sure enough, they're all just sitting there, you know. And so that tuning, what are they telling us? What are they telling us? Or you get, and they all fly off, you know, and something, you know, something's happened and they don't feel safe right now. It's a much deeper learning. Then when we go to learn some of the more outward things, this is what they eat, this is what they do, da, 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 da. Although, of course, the eating, we can learn that by watching. We don't have to get it from a book. But, you know, can you see that depth of learning is, I don't know, it connects in a deep, it's more experiential, and it connects and it'll stay with them longer. Also, when I was saying you don't have to be good, like with music, you know, I still make up songs for my kids, and I'm always embarrassed by it, but they love the little songs. And every year we have what's called Family Entertainment Night, and I always do, it's horribly embarrassing for me because we do musicals. My class does musicals. And because I know that my little guys can learn music, they have ways of making it easy. They can learn poetry and they can learn music. And they can get up there and they can do a performance if what they're speaking rhymes and it's got songs in it. And it's no pressure, like, you know. So I give it to them even though I'm really bad at music. So, you know, you don't even have to be good at this stuff. But it's like I know what kinds of songs connect with my kids. So don't be afraid, I guess is what I'm saying. Okay, so let's look at stages. Yeah.
Would you sing one so we know what you mean?
Okay. Oh, gosh. Okay, we did Horton Hears a Who. And so this was the song that went along with the Who's. You all know Horton Hears a Who, with the Who's being little. Oh gosh, can you turn that off? No. Okay. You may be a tiny one, hardly heard by anyone, but of this I do declare, you have gifts that you can share. If each one will do their part, joining in with all their heart, everyone will know you're here. You'll have nothing left to fear. And they danced with it. Okay, so let's look at stages of maturity. What stage they're in will guide how you can connect the lessons to them. If they're in the physical years, do. You don't have to even talk about it so much. If they get their bodies involved, if they're learning about this world and they're just doing it, they're going to get that. And that's how they're going to learn. It's going to have how they're going to learn with joy. And it's going to really stick. So let that guide you. Involve their bodies. Involve action. In the feeling years, you want to touch them. You know, this is stories. This is music. This is connecting, like those geese.
Do you mind if I interrupt?
Oh, absolutely.
You're giving examples of animals, which is easy to see how to touch their feelings when teaching animals. Give us an example of how to touch their feelings when teaching math or geology or something that less naturally opens the heart.
You know, that's where, like, I feel like cooperative learning comes in, because when they're working with their friends and they're connecting in that way, they really care about, it's like they care about the learning, you know? And so it's not even necessarily the subject matter, Although you could do a story. You know, stories at this age are fantastic. And so if you're doing geology, you know, and I don't know enough about it, you could probably, can you make up a story just quick about, like, you know how everything presses down and you get those, what is that?
The strata of the rock.
Yeah, you know, so you could make a story about the formation of that kind of rock, or the mountains and how they change, and you know, you give them that, and it's in their imagination. In the feeling years, it's also a time of great imagination, so you can build in that. Does that help?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And creativity. You know, creativity has to do with the heart and with the feelings. And so you make up a song. You know, that's a feeling kind of a thing. So all those, the passions of childhood, so many of them connect with feelings. So you think, okay, well, look at those. In the will years, it's what can I do with this information? Can I make a difference in the world? How does it relate to me and who I'm trying to become? You know, or is there some kind of a challenge around it? Let's see if everybody in class can with whatever the subject matter is. But these are the will years. They want to do something with it. They want to feel like their competence and their place in the world. And this is, you know, where am I heading with this? And so in the will years, you know, that's something you want to look at, how to connect with them that way. Okay, we can look at the tools of maturity. Okay. Of course, in our lessons, it's good if we include all the tools as much as possible, because we're going to have kids who have varying tools that are their strength. So you want to build those in if you can. You build in a feeling component to what you're doing, or a physical component, like with the spelling. You know, we build that in. You build a story, you build music, you build challenge, you build the actual intellectual information, all of that. But especially if you see, you know, we want to think of our class both as a whole and as individuals. So sometimes you'll just, you know, because a class builds its own personality and its own magnetism. Some of it's based on who the leaders are, along with, you know, how long have you been inside? For the last 6 months we've been inside because it's rained every day, you know, that kind of thing. It will have its group personality, almost like its group tool. And it'll have its individual tool. The individuals will have their tools too. So as you're looking at building your lesson, you can think, you know, is my class, do I want to direct this lesson more strongly physically, more strongly with a feeling element? Or Usha's in my class and she has a strong need right now. I'm just going to build this lesson around her need. Everybody else can grow from it too, but I'm going to focus only really on feeding her right now. And so you can look both ways, and it's helpful to look both ways, because if you have somebody in your class who's really needy right now and you don't take care of them, you know, you don't start filling them up. Remember, I was listening to some of the CDs earlier, and Usha said, I have wasted so much time over the years trying to teach when the kids were hungry or thirsty. Get them eating, get them hydrated, and then they learn so much more. The same thing, if you've got somebody really needy in your class, and I know you're going to recognize this, you start teaching your lesson and you say, Sam, sit down. You get 3 sentences. Sam, you get to, Sam, what? Are you being effective? No. So might as well feed him, you know, inwardly what he needs. And the whole class is going to, your lesson's going to be a lot more effective. The whole class is going to learn better. Everything's going to be more efficient if you take care of, if you've got a really needy child, take care of them, you know, in your lesson and what you do. So, as looking at tools as a group and individually both, okay? Let's see. 6 areas of the curriculum. Okay. Now, you said they've already done this, right? They've done, okay. Okay, so this is another area you can look at. Okay, I'm teaching something, creative writing, okay? And do I want to focus on, because you can take almost any subject and it more naturally will fit into one of the 6 areas of the curriculum, but it can also take, you can take almost any subject and give it a certain leaning. Like if you're doing creative writing and you have kids that are super into the world around them, so you can take your creative writing assignment and make it have a focus of our Earth, our universe. Or maybe you're doing geology, and so you want to take your creative writing and have it be around the subject of geology. And so you can lean it, you know, either because of other subject matter you're working with or because of the kid's natural inclination. And recognizing there is an inner teaching to each one, or an inner possibility to each one of those 6 areas. You know, if you're looking at our Earth, our universe, this is a time, where this is a focus that will build that sense of awe. It will offer kids the ability to grow in their connectedness and their sense of belonging to the whole world around them, to their body as a tool for them, because they're learning through physical, you know. So you can build that in. Personal development, if you're looking at personal development and you think, okay, I'm going to put some challenge into this subject. I want them to feel where they're at right now, and we're going to give them that next step. We're going to lay it out for them. This is the goal to reach for, and we're all going to cheer everybody on until we all reach that next step. So you give it that personal development kind of emphasis. You can look at self-expression and communication. That's clarity of mind, clarity of thinking, creativity. You know, so you have what you're doing, you think, okay, I really am overall, I want to have this feeling. This is an area I'm wanting them to stretch in, to grow in. And so let me look at, can I take this, whatever it is, and can I give self-expression, communication, leaning to it, you know, understanding people. What's the inner gift of understanding people? Well, it's flexibility of thinking. You know what? That's another way of doing that. You know, or like in my family, when you were going on a trip, okay, that's a 6-hour trip. We do 1 bathroom stop, we can get there in 6 hours and 15 minutes. The goal was getting there. You know, I went on a trip with my husband that was a 3-hour trip. It took us 12 hours to get there. He said, look, let's stop. I thought, you can do this? You know? Oh, look at that. I never knew you could travel like that. I never knew you could take a 3-hour trip and go to have it take 12 hours to get there because you enjoyed the trip and you stopped I didn't know you could do it that way. It's a whole nother way of traveling. And so understanding people, oh gosh, look, Padma does things this way, and you know, everyone does things their own way. I didn't know you could do it that way. It's such an appreciation. It builds such appreciation for all the gifts that people bring to any given. Think of the gifts you've got in your classroom. If we can recognize and honor and uphold all the different gifts our kids bring, I mean, one, it builds an incredible sense of school family. But for our own selves, and it's such flexibility of thinking, such gratitude, you know, for we don't have to be everything. Sandy brings this, and Vidura brings that, and all these people. It's a fantastic way of building flexibility and gratitude. And also, you learn to get along with people. And that's going to make a whole lot of positive moments in your life that could otherwise not be so positive. I had a 4th grade class, and we were studying Japan, and it just so happened my brother-in-law was in Japan for a year teaching English, and so we were doing a lot of communicating. And I just tell you this for fun. I found this so amazing, but it's what building in understanding people into your lesson can do. When he first started teaching there, in Japan, individuality is not something that's particularly honored. Harmony and humbleness are huge. And so he would, you're teaching a lesson, you say, okay, you ask a question, what about this? No one would answer. No one would raise their hand and answer because it was considered braggy. It was not humble. And so if, like I asked Usha, okay, Usha, what about whatever the question was? She would lean to her neighbor and say, do you think, even if she knew the answer, do you think da-da-da-da? And then they could both say, well, we think this. Or even when he was going someplace and visiting, and he'd get a little lost, and they have a lot of, at least they did at that time, they had traffic officers, guiding the traffic and stuff, and he would ask, how do I get to such and such temple, or something like that. The police officer would never give him the directions. He would ask a passerby, do you think the best way to get da-da-da-da-da? And then together, they would give him directions. The police officer knew, but you would, and just in America, where we're, I know the answer, my kids, it was like, wow. And so for a couple days, we tried to be so humble, so humble. Oh my gosh, it was beautiful. It was and they got to experience what humbleness was. And so I feel like they grew as much from that aspect of our study of Japan as anything, because it was so new to them. It was really broadening. Cooperation, of course, it teaches compromise, it teaches respect for others. It offers the value of harmony, really considering other people's reality, knowing that you don't always have to have it your way. You don't always have to be the first. You can actually have joy in helping raise somebody else up. It's so beautiful. I love that aspect of the 6 areas of the curriculum. And then, of course, wholeness brings it all together. And so you can take a little piece of this and a little piece of that.